If you go into a bookshop, you may notice that one of the ever-increasing sections you find within the bookshop is the self-help section. I know, I've had a look at it. Thank you. If you go onto Amazon, I'm sure there are other sites available, I'm not on commission, but if you go to Amazon and search for self-help in the search bar, you will get over 100,000 results. So there's plenty of different things to go around to all of you lot, I know. All of these 100,000 results on Amazon offering the way to reach the depths of our inner selves in the hopes of discovering that just that little nugget of insight to be able to pursue, discover, and maintain a meaning and lasting happiness. And I'm sure that at some level, all of us are in search for something of that, aren't we? That sort of happiness which becomes life-giving and fruitful. The sort of happiness which is, of course, our search for lasting happiness, not something that's fleeting. There was a trend on Facebook a little while ago, I don't know if you remember, where you could take these very scientific quizzes to discover things like, what sort of movie character am I? I'm obviously Arnie, because of my amazing physique. I don't know why you're laughing. Or the sort of quiz that's like, what sort of friend am I? I'm sure you sort of remember those quizzes. What sort of Disney character am I? I was always a villain. And as you think about things, the more that we look into this sort of self-help area, the more that we search for just this special knowledge, that sort of key which is going to unlock the answer to life's questions and search for life's happiness. Isn't it true that it's the further and further and further away that we actually seem to get to discovering the answer to it? And as I was thinking about this the other day, I thought, well, I suppose that's what the publishers of all these books want, isn't it? They want us to be able to go and search for the next book. Because if we found the answer, then they wouldn't have a job, would they? What does happen, in my experience, is only my experience anyway, is that this quest for self-knowledge, the quest to discover what the authentic me looks like, actually becomes nothing more than a wonderful ego boost. Because what we go and to discover about ourselves fulfills and conforms to the illusion that we've already created about us, not the reality of how things are. It's interesting that Pope Francis describes this as spiritual worldliness. And he describes this very thing as a subtle way of seeking one's own interests, not of those of Jesus Christ. And he uses a powerful verb. I know it's a verb, I checked last night, because English grammar was not my strong point. He uses an interesting verb to emphasize the danger of entertaining this sort of spiritual worldliness. He describes it as being stifling. This stifling spiritual worldliness, rather than liberate us, help us to see the best of ourselves, actually ends up closing us down. Far from helping us to discover that authentic pathway to our flourishing, what it actually does, it blinds us. It creates these false oases which promise a lot, but then actually deliver very little. And so we look to that second reading today. St. Paul, in that second reading, offers us wonderful tools for our transformation. And these tools are what will enable us to really discover who we are, really, as children of God, as made in the image and likeness of God himself. With that searching desire for authentic conversion that's not ego-driven and worldly, but actually is placed in the backdrop of our authentic flourishing. And this is the spiritual revolution which he speaks of. It's the spiritual revolution which he challenges us with. And it's this spiritual revolution that will enable us to make the very famous prayer of St. Augustine our own prayer as we discover how we fit into this world, what flourishing looks like for us. St. Augustine says this wonderful prayer of discernment. He says, "You have made us and drawn us to yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." Isn't this what our second reading is all about? Isn't this what St. Paul reflects upon when he talks about being able to put on the new self that has been created in God's way? And what does he say? In order for us to give up that old way of life, to be able to put that to one side. The challenge of a spiritual revolution has a Eucharistic heartbeat. Notice that reading is placed in the context of that gospel which we've just heard. Because what and who we receive in the Most Holy Eucharist, which will happen in a little moment, brings about that interior change within us. We journey to become what we consume. During this time of summer rest, let us place aside the worldliness which is stifling and suffocates, and let us take up battle in a spiritual revolution. Amen.